What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. BobbyFi is doing it solo today. Happy 25th anniversary to Sheets. I actually recorded this video already and showed highlights from last night where I finished sixth, tied for sixth with myself. But we had a chance to make some pretty great money, but we did a good job. We made a nice return, about 3.5 to 4x on a pretty heavy volume. I didn't listen to myself exactly with holding back because I felt like there was some places to take advantage on a giant slate, and I tend to do really well on those giant slates and on the really tiny ones. I like the middle ones better actually. They sort of balance me out, but in general, I've had some good results on these giant slates because you can get a Sabonis who I played at 3%, and I played him with Harden and Westbrook. So you're getting already between those guys. I think that what was that 220 points or 230 points between those guys. So you're already off to a pretty good start when you get three of your guys in there like that. Anyway, it was a good night. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk about tonight because I don't want to go back through everything I just went through again. And let's start it off with game by game action. So first of all, guys, if you haven't liked, if you can like and subscribe, we always appreciate it. We're trying to do this. We're doing this stuff for free right now. We've got our site being built, and we just would appreciate it if you guys would just like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please tell your friends, and it would be really beneficial just to have like a nice little thing for however much longer, because we're probably gonna have the site up pretty soon. It's actually up, but it's not put together yet, so we're still working on that. So let's talk about these games tonight. Let's just go to all here, and I'm going to talk about each side of each game. This is the way I like to do it. I prefer always to go road team first and then talk about transitioning into the home team. As you can see, me and Sheets don't exactly agree with this, and sometimes gets a little confusing, but this is my preferred method anyway. Right off the bat, like, the Charlotte side of this game is going to be really interesting. I think Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward are really good plays, but they're going to be incredible chalk. And let's turn this off. And they're going to be incredible chalk. And I don't think that it's bad chalk. I just want to point out, like, the usage has been crazy. The numbers have been really good, but there is a bus path. I mean, we only really want one of these games that Rozier's had. It's and in that game, he made 4 threes, which he pretty much does anyway. But you get the 11 assists. The assists are all over the place for him, which happens a lot with the Charlotte team. Gordon Hayward, another one who, yeah, he absolutely has a bigger ceiling, a 50 plus ceiling. But you can just look, even without some of these guys, we haven't seen like the best of him every night. Now the matchup is premium. I think the natural thing is people will play Devonte Graham on FanDuel, which I'm going to do, but I also think you should play him over here. I think he's a really, really good play. Should be somewhat lower owned. And I love Malik Monk. I hope the Q tag stays up there a while because he's supposed to play. And just a heat check guy who can explode and break a slate for you. And this is like, couldn't be a better matchup for him. But obviously it comes with him some variance. So we're gonna have to figure out what ownership he has. I'm going to be doing a late, I'll be in the chat and we can do a Q&A and stuff like that today. I'm happy to answer any QQs, but I don't think I'm going to be doing the late show, because it's just, when I do it solo, I've just had better luck when I do it this way. And as long as we're still doing this for free, that's the way I'm probably going to do it. When we don't have Sheets or I don't have another guest on. I want to just point out with Bridges that the minutes, like, that was a little bit, he was playing great. It's against his brother. There's a lot of little things that were going into it. They hit the double-double, all that stuff. But I have some interest here. I think the minutes projections around the industry, let's see what I've got in that, is about 26 to 30, depending on where you look. I think that's actually enough with his upside in this kind of environment, which he could thrive. There's no rim protection really for Washington. So the way I've got it ranked, and some of it's factored into ownership on DraftKings right now, is I actually am I'm going to have some of Hayward and Rozier, don't get me wrong, but I'm more focusing on Devonte Graham, Miles Bridges, Malik Monk over here. And then you've got Biyombo, who's going to show up as a great value. I'm just going to remind people, you really don't need to play big. They don't always want to play big, and you can see the minutes are fluctuating. Like Miami, you have to play big against. Phoenix, you'd think you'd have to play big against, but they didn't really go for that. And still, even the production is just not all that exciting. So that's where I'm at with old Bismack. I just feel like iffy. I feel like if we really need the value, maybe. But the problem is, I think we're going to have value in the Clippers game, depending on what happens on the back-to-back with Kawhi, and then PG potentially playing or not against a really weak Orlando team. The point spread in that game, you can see the projected. I don't think that that's like a. I think that's a sign. Like I think it would be like 15 or 16 if everybody was healthy, maybe even higher. So I actually think it's a sign that maybe they're. I think there's a good chance one of them doesn't play, and I think there's honestly an outside chance of both of them not playing. I would not be surprised at all with the way they're doing things over there right now. So on the Washington side, look, if Beal plays, I love him. Simple as that. Westbrook, I love. I love whether Beal plays or not. He goes on these runs. Obviously, yesterday was like an epic fantasy game of all time. Like, I mean, seriously, one of the best that I've seen. But you can look at it. I mean, he's just pretty much always there. Like, unless the blowout against New York, they're down by 30 at the end of three, lost some minutes, and obviously would have gotten there. He's just a monster. And some of these games were without Beal, but not all of them. Some of them, the 70 was with Beal, I believe. The 82 was that. I can't even remember whether Beal played in that one, but I do think Westbrook's a really good player, and I think Beal's a really good play. I like this matchup. I would have targeted this on a much bigger slate. Yeah, you did have Beal for both of those, and the truth is Beal hasn't been very good from a fantasy or real life perspective, and only taking 11 shots in that Detroit game was a little bit surprising. These 8 for 23s, I like to see Bradley Beal taking 20 shots. And I think tonight he'll have an opportunity. So give the edge to Westbrook still a little bit, but I don't mind playing them together and stacking this game up. The problem is, like I said, you're going to want some of the later action, I believe. If for some reason Beal is out again, which he may be, but I mean, look, Westbrook could even be out. But the truth is this team wants to make the playoffs, and they're playing hard, and they play for each other and all that. If Beal is out again, I don't mind Hachimura on both sides. But I'm not like overwhelmingly like in love, like you absolutely need to play him. But I do think he's a good play, depending on where the ownership ends up breaking on him. I think it's going to be pretty high. And if Beal is out again, obviously Chandler Hutchison, Jerome Robinson get back into the mix. I do think Alex Len is kind of interesting. They are closing with him these days. And I just think that there's like not every day they're not, but for the most part they have been. We do have Gafford, I believe, is going to be, I think he's questionable, but I thought he was going to be out. He had the ankle sprain last night and was actually playing really well. And if Gafford was playing, I would take a shot on Gafford. I don't know that Len would close, but if he's out, I think Len has a good shot at it again, just because the way the rotations work. And these are not great numbers. You're not thrilled with these, but we do see the ceiling. And sure, it was Brooklyn, but this is Charlotte. They have no big inside. Biyombo's a decent enough defender, but he's not big enough. He's not strong enough. And they're going to play PJ Washington at the 5 quite a bit. Just keep that in mind. I do like PJ Washington, by the way, but I like him a little bit more on FanDuel. Of course, he's cheaper over there, so he'll be higher owned. But I do think that he's in play on both sides. It's just a little bit harder to ask that. I mean, look at this game he had last time out. 44 minutes, no field goals, 0 for 2 from the line, 0 points, 12 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 2 assists, and put up 25 fantasy points in 44 minutes. That's wild. I do think that he has upside in this type of matchup, though. But I think people are going to stay away from him. And I don't think he'll make a lot of my lineups, but I do think that he's in play. I'm not crossing him off just yet. Avdia probably in play either way with no Bertans still. You see that he played 27 minutes. I'm really just looking at minutes and hoping that I get the better side of the variance. I wish he would shoot the ball a little bit more. I think they even want him to shoot the ball a little bit more. He's been rebounding a little bit better. Is not going to do much for you other than score, but we're looking for value, and he stands out as a potentially cheap value right off the bat. And then you've got only without Beal would I play Neto. Although Neto it's weird, he actually sometimes has gotten more minutes with Beal on the court, and actually pretty consistently performs like somewhere in the teens. Sorry, not going to play Robin Lopez. And anyway, Garrison Matthews is a no for me. Unless we have no Beal, I will definitely take some shots there because no one likes to play him even on a 2-game slate. I once got him at 2% at minimum cost, and he did fine for me in that particular time, so that was good. I think Hutchison would be the natural guy to go to just because they did give him the run down the stretch. He obviously played exceptionally well, but you wait till the starting lineup comes out. We can figure that part out then. But as of right now, this is my favorite game to stack. On this side of the Philly game, I think that he has not been good for us since we've lost Embiid. Now, there's some reasons for some of it. He fouled out against the Clippers in 26 minutes, so I can cross that game completely off. I don't worry about that one. And we had the game against the Lakers. I do feel disturbed by how low the aggressiveness is sometimes with him, and I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive. He was foul trouble in that game too. I think he was in foul trouble against Golden State as well. So we haven't really seen that big game. He's much cheaper on FanDuel, probably makes a little more sense over there. And we know there's a ceiling. I mean, without Embiid, I think he had a 78 game earlier this year against Utah of all teams, something like that. Was it 78? That wasn't that game against Utah. It was where he scored his career high 42. So I like Simmons, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with the rest of this Philly side if I want to play anybody else. I think Simmons is going to be very low owned on DraftKings, so I do like that possibility, but I'd like the other more expensive plays a little bit better probably. I just think that he makes for a great tournament play. On the as far as the other plays go, Danny Green is, on these small slates, I don't mind him so much. He can always get hot. I mean, he probably has to make like 6 threes to really get you there, 5 threes maybe, but he can do that. I mean, so Dwight Howard's minutes have been a little bit in flux. Partly there's the game he got ejected against the Lakers, which was funny after getting his ring. I think that he's got upside here. I just don't know that I'm going to end up getting to it. Seth Curry, same thing. And that's pretty much most of my interest. I think that deep tournament play would be Shake Milton for me. I've been a little disappointed with how he's produced and the minutes that he's gotten since this has all happened. But you can see over here, he's 4,700. Definitely is a guy who can get you 30. It's against a team that does have multiple guards that you could throw him at. The problem is with Curry, Green, everybody basically else. They have a lot of good perimeter defenders, a lot of good perimeter players. The Mike Scott thing is something we should probably touch on. His projections are always going to suck, and it's not that it doesn't make any sense. I'll just point out that he played 29 and 28 minutes the last 2 games. Now he put up 11 fantasy points in the 29-minute game against the Clippers, but he was 1 for 6 from 3, which is basically all he takes. And he was 2 for 8 from 3 against the Lakers, but he did put up 23 fantasy points in those 28 minutes. And against a team like Denver, I don't see them. I think they're going to have to put Howard out there. Like, I don't see them playing Mike Scott against Jokic. I just don't see it lasting very long, even if they do. So it does make Howard a little bit more interesting. And the weird part is you could actually end up seeing Scott a little bit at the 4, but I don't know. I'm not extremely excited about that. We have to talk through everybody because it's a small slate. Matisse Thybulle has been getting minutes and he's 3,200. That's all I'm saying right now, because another guy who has to get you there in different ways, but again, a low-owned value piece that could be interesting. This is pretty easy over here. I'm pretty sure that you're like the Denver side over here, you're going to want to play Jokic as the second best spend up, probably to Westbrook. It depends on what happens with the PG and Kawhi situation, but does it really, and will Orlando even be able to keep it close enough? I don't know. But Jokic, you can just, I mean, like they had the blowout against Atlanta, they looked great. So obviously he didn't get the full run, was going to get another triple double, would have been there easy. I'm not worried about Aaron Gordon eating into Jokic. And I don't like this price has made it like he should be played. He's too cheap. This is a guy who averages 59.5. You guys can do the math. That's well over 5x there. And I think he's too cheap. So, but again, so you could argue that about Westbrook as well. So Jokic is my main piece of interest from the Denver side. It's going to be hard to get to anybody else, but on a small slate, I don't mind maybe a stab at Jamal Murray. That's the only other one I would probably have any serious interest in. I just don't see anybody else getting enough run to where at their prices where they're great plays. Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter, both sure it could be their night, but I think I'm rather just sticking with Jokic over here and not really all that interested in anybody else unless we hear about later news, which is always a possibility. Let's talk about Orlando and the Clippers. Orlando, we like basically nothing. I don't really know what to do with this team. I think Michael Carter-Williams on FanDuel maybe still feels a little bit reachy, but does have some upside maybe. Terrence Ross is your ultimate upside guy, but the price is 7,100 on DraftKings is probably hard to get your head around. But he can get there. I mean, he has the ability to. This guy scored 50 real life points in a game. Now it's been a while, but he can score. And he's their best offensive player by, I mean, probably as big a gap as there is on any team. There's really nothing else there. I really want them to start giving Wendell Carter like some serious minutes because I think Wendell Carter still has a lot in him. And I am going to come up with one sort of longer shot play here for Orlando. And that's going to be, look, the numbers aren't going to look like it, but why wouldn't they just give RJ Hampton a chance for the rest of the season? And, 17 minutes, okay, whatever. It's in the one game we've seen with him over there. If that can bump up to 20, which I think it really could, RJ Hampton might be the most interesting play in some ways in this game. It's not like Orlando needs to win games. It's not like we even know for sure that they're going to play a guy like Ross. You don't know. They might. I mean, they literally can tank away. They don't need to do anything. On the Clippers side, I'm almost positive that something's going to happen. I would be surprised. You could argue that, obviously Kawhi will sit tonight because so Paul George will play. It's pretty simple. Whoever, they're similarly priced. They're different positions, but find a way to get one of them in if you can. I understand that there are other plays to like early on, but with one of them out, I do like both those guys. The only problem is you still have a potential blowout, and you've got some other guys who could do some damage. You've got guys like Kennard for value. If one of them is out again, if George, he's better in general with George out, but he's 3,400. It's the back-to-back, and Morris is getting up there in age. I like Morris, but just wanted to mention that one. He's 37 minutes last night. That could be something that you might see him even resting. Maybe not. Batum is probably the one I would probably not play unless we get those guys out. I'm happy to go back to Rjax. Part of the thing about them running away last night is I think it gives him more of a minute ceiling tonight versus a Terrence Mann who played 33 minutes last night and played great. They both played really well. Terrence Mann, I know they like him for their defense and everything, and he'll probably get the normal blowout run if there is that blowout. But Reggie Jackson might be on the court more early, and they might even just give a little bit of a break to Mann. Now, this is all, of course, assuming that Beverly and Rondo are out. And we just don't have that information yet. So obviously, if those guys play, it's a different story, and then we need starting lineups, and we need to really see what happens with the Clippers. The problem is, will we get that information today, or will we get it after lock? And it is a big deal because the first game I have the second most interest in, the most interested on the slate, unless we get a bunch of Clipper stuff, which I am sort of expecting. We also have Ibaka questionable, by the way, and I don't think they're going to play him in this matchup. It is his old team. If they did sort of bust him out and sit everybody, you could consider him. But these are not the most exciting things in the world. And again, it's hard to figure this one out early in the day. I love the Atlanta side of this. I think everybody is an affordable price. My favorite play is, shocker guys, you guys follow me all the time, it's going to be Capella. Capella is a monster, as much better as Ayton may have gotten on the offensive end, or if they try and play Saric. I just think that the rebounds for Capella in this game are going to be what drives him. I know he had the down game against Denver. Don't remember, 20-point loss, big blowout, terrible matchup with Jokic. No centers put up games against him. But the previous games, obviously great matchups. I consider this a really good matchup, and I expect Clint Capella to be in the 40s tonight. So I really like him a lot. He's definitely one of the guys who I'm very high on. I like John Collins a lot as a different one in that game. Look, you're going to get a wide range of outcomes with Collins, but you can see the 60s out there. They're there. And he's a very, very skilled player. He can get really hot. So that makes a lot of sense. I probably would go Capella, Collins, then Trey. As they've played better, you can see Trey's production has dwindled a lot. Still, I would say probably too cheap. And again, it's not the great matchup against Chris Paul and a good defense, but it's a good price. And it's been a good price, but I just find myself sort of not quite as into those guys. I do like Capella and Collins both. You don't play these guys together, but I do think they're both really good plays. Occasionally they'll hit together, but I just think you're better off. There's some other good plays in the slate I would rather go with. I think that if I was going to do something like that. On the other side, it's hard to have a ton of interest. Okay, so DeAndre Ayton, I've been very much on the record of saying I don't like taking centers against Capella. The flip side is this team plays big, so you might need those minutes out of him, and they can't bring in one of their other guys to guard these guys. Now, even if he gets 35, he's 6,400. He's actually exceeding, basically 5xing his price. You'd want to see a little more from him than that. Oddly enough, the hardest matchup he's had is the best he's played. And this sort of fits into that category. So maybe, I don't know. The minutes are back in the right direction after getting really trimmed down there for a while. So I do have some interest. It doesn't feel overwhelmingly exciting to me. I'll put it that way. I don't really know, I don't know. I'm not too excited about it. Obviously, the matchup for Chris Paul will show up as being a really good matchup. Chris Paul tends to play really well and have big fantasy games when they need him to score. You know, you had the LeBron game or whatever. They need him to take over. I don't think I'm playing Chris Paul even in a good matchup, and in a slightly worse matchup. But still, you know, guards against Atlanta, obviously like the point guard. I think we're seeing a lot more out of Booker in terms of the shooting. Look at the 26 shots in the last game against Charlotte. Had 21 a few nights before. If we can get 20 shots from Booker, I'm very into this play. You're going to get some rebounds, some assists, and probably some steals against an Atlanta team that can get sloppy at some point. So just wanted to throw that stuff out there. And yeah, that's highlights just real quick. PG or Kawhi, assuming one of them's out. Great play. Capella, these are just my priority guys. Monk and Graham. Some of this is because of the ownership for what I expect for Rozier and Hayward. Beal, Westbrook, Ben Simmons, Jokic, Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann. Those are if the guys are out. So, and you know, we have to wait and see on that stuff. So still a lot to wait on, but wanted to get you guys something. So here's our first look for the day. Thanks for tuning in with us, and we'll see you at the top of leaderboards again tonight.